Wake that ass up early in the morning. The Breakfast Club.
Here we go. Morning, everybody. It's DJ Envy, Angela Yee, Charlamagne the Guy. We are the Breakfast Club. We have a special guest on the phone lines this morning. We have Barbara Corcoran. Welcome.
Welcome to you, to have me. Thank you for having me.
Now,
one of my favorite sharks, Barbara and Damon John, are my two favorites.
Well, you've got good taste because Damon's my favorite as well.
So how are you quarantining? How is everything? Where are you held up at? What are you doing?
I'm held up at New York City. I'm right over Central Park, so I have a beautiful view, and I've watched those medical tents go up and go down, which is a note of, gave me a positive feeling. But I'm trying to keep my marriage together. It's going on 37 years, and I know everything wrong with my husband. There's nothing wrong with me.
Wow. That's
well, you also know everything. You know everything right about him too, then.
Yeah, I do. I'm sticking with it, I'm afraid, at this point, yeah.
So now, for people, I've been married 19 years, a couple days ago. So what is the perfect, I should say, for people that would need advice to say, how do you make a relationship last so long? What advice would you give them?
I would say one word: endurance. Look at the long term. If I had made judgments every bit along the way, I would have been divorced 25 times by now. No, I just need to stay with it, decide you're going to stay with it, period, end of story.
What's the balance for you, Barbara, when it comes to making the decision spontaneously and then weighing everything out a lot? Because there is a balance between that. Sometimes you have to go with like your gut and your heart, and sometimes you're like, okay, I have to be really cautious.
Well, I'm totally in the area of going with your gut and your heart, because you know what your gut is? It's not logical. It's not school smart. It's not book smart. It's not other people's opinion. Your gut is kind of like the summation of everything you've lived. So whatever my gut does, I go right along with it. I don't question it at all. And if you think back at all the decisions you make in life that you regret, usually you had a gut instinct that told you not to do it. So I've learned to really pay attention.
Now, with the real estate industry right now, you know, you made a fortune off real estate, and I'm sure you continue to do so. You know, what do you advise people to do? Is this a good time for people to get into real estate? I know a lot of people are scared with the market dropping. I'm looking at real estate. I see the house market is going down a little bit. What would you advise for people to do right now outside of this pandemic if they have a little money saved as far as real estate is concerned?
Well, today's a day where you could really make a killing, but a lot of people don't have the guts to do it, you know? I think every single property I ever bought that became my best investments over time, homes, investment properties, because that's what I do for a living, I got them all in on certain times, and everybody was saying, which way are we going to go? What's going on? And right now, the real estate market is choppy. You've got some areas where you have overbidding, like Seattle, Washington, portions of even San Francisco still, urban markets. And then you've got markets that are dumping like crazy, like New York City, for example. People didn't even renew their leases last month that were up for renewal. Only 40% of everybody renewed their leases. People are vacating cities for the time being. But amidst all that change, what you've got is you've got a desperate seller. Somewhere in that pile is a desperate seller. And so if you could stay in the market you're looking in, whatever your home ballpark is, because that's where you want to stay, stuff you know, if you could pounce on something, you could get yourself a great deal. But again, I say, you got to have a set of you-know-what to get in there and do that kind of stuff.
You could say a set of balls.
Well, you're allowed to say that? I thought even that was illegal now.
You can say,
not on this show.
Not on this show.
Okay. I got a set, by the way.
I was recently reading about a lot of people are going to Connecticut now from New York, and they said the prices of real estate in Connecticut are going up. And I'm seeing a lot of people, I don't know if this is a trend, but a lot of people who had like small apartments in the city are wanting to have more space now, and after this pandemic they're thinking, okay, let me get rid of this small expensive apartment and actually move somewhere, move to Brooklyn, move to Queens, move
Jersey
to Connecticut,
yep.
where I can, Jersey, where I can have more space. So what kind of trends are out there that we should be paying attention to?
Well, you actually named the main trend, and that is true of New Jersey, Westchester County, Connecticut. If you're away from the fray, that's the new commodity out there. Everybody wants to be away. The idea of luxury, forget about it. Nobody's talking those words. Even people, families who are shopping for homes right now aren't even talking about how good is the school district. You know why? Because they're thinking they're going to homeschool their kids anyway. You know, the home today has to be the office. It has to be the schoolhouse. It has to be a place where you could actually love your family 24/7 and have the freedom to get away from everybody else. That's asking a lot. So what that's translating to right now is a huge demand for housing in those areas, even though they can't barely show those houses. People are riding up, parking in the driveway. Brokers are opening the door, telling them to put a mask on, help yourself, nobody's home. It's very, very difficult to do business, but despite all that, these properties are going up, up, up in value because of fear. Fear is a wonderful motivator. It's a main motivator right now in the real estate market. Fear, and how do we protect ourselves as a family?
You know, it's funny that you said that. I'm actually selling my house, and now is the time I'm gonna put it on the market because I live in New Jersey and everybody has been reaching out saying, hey, we want to get out of the city. It's too close. I need something. And you know what's selling right now? People want a pool. It's summertime. They're like, if your house has a pool, it will sell. So I've had agents call, and I'm glad I was going to sell it last year, but now it seems like the market, the prices went up even more. So I'm like, I'm glad I waited.
And not only that, but interest rates came down. Another whole point.
Yes.
So you're at the rock bottom of interest rates. But now I have a question for you. Where are you going to move? I would give that a little bit of thought before you have that family move into your house.
Oh, I found a home run. Similar to what you said, I found a home run. It was up there in price, and I was able to get it for a great deal. So even if I, not take as much here.
Dirty dog, shame on you.
I'm following your footsteps. I'm following in your footsteps.
I don't want the competition. Cut it out. I want to be the big shot in town.
It must be great to still have your name all over the place, because as people are shopping for real estate, that Corcoran name still holds so much weight. So are you still involved in it at all? I know you sold the company, but do you have any involvement?
I'm not involved at all, but I'll tell you something. That is my baby nonetheless. You can sell a business, but you're still connected to the people that you found, you hired, you nurtured, you trained, the people that were your best friends of your whole life. I'll never get over it. About a couple of weeks ago, I was passing by one of the Corcoran Group offices on the Upper East Side, which is closed, of course, but I replaced all the flowers in the flower box because I noticed nobody was attending to it. It made no sense. I'm like, what am I doing this for? But my name's on that door, even though I don't own the sucker anymore. You know, you have to cut that umbilical cord, and it's not easy when you put your heart and soul into growing a business, believe me.
Now,
I love your whole story too, how you started everything with $1,000. And I read an article where you were talking about how you feel like the people that you would invest in and who you feel could be most successful are people who come from poverty and difficult circumstances. So do you find that
Absolutely.
still holds true, especially right now?
Yeah, I identify with people like that, and I can give you a whole list of reasons why it makes good financial sense as well. My background is one of 10 kids in a 2-bedroom flat, and let me tell you, we worked since the time we were 12. We may not have been like, I was terrible at school, but I was a great hard worker. And so people who struggle, and in fact, people who have a real deficit in their childhood, I find make phenomenal entrepreneurs. They create a world of like kind of how they envision it versus fitting in with somebody else's world. And so when I'm on that Shark Tank show, every time I'm sitting in that seat, I'm looking for a loser. It sounds weird, but I'm looking for the guy who was raised by a single mom. I'm looking for the gal whose mother said she'd never amount to anything. I'm looking for somebody who's motivated by insult, somebody who's got something to prove, somebody who knows what it's like to take a hit, be smashed around a bit, because you know what they learn in that journey? They learn to get back up. Instead, you give me a privileged kid, and now I've got privileged kids, so I'm not knocking them really so much. But give me a privileged kid, and they lack the experience of struggle. You know, they've been on the fancy vacations. Everything's kind of come easy. It's not their fault. It's just their environment, how they've grown up. And you can't learn the toughness in the skin and the street smarts that you learn when you come from the ghetto or the family that needs this or needs that, and you had to help out. So many different values. So that's what I do. I buy the entrepreneur is what I do when I'm buying those businesses. And the poorer they are, the better they do for me every time.
It's a different work ethic when the person knows if they fail, they can just call their parents or get more investors to invest in them, when people know that if they do fail, this is it, you know? So I think it is a different mentality of I can't fail.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm going to add something to that you might not think of, because I've seen both sides, the privileged side and the poor side. I've lived both lives. The one advantage, huge advantage, and Damon John talks about it, The Power of Broke, according to his great book, by the way. If you haven't read it, get it. It's his best one.
We read that book too.
Yeah, I know. Just phenomenal. But anyway, to steal his idea, but I learned it for myself, is when you're poor, you have an advantage of you have nowhere to go but up. You don't have pushing parents have been really successful, like monkeys on your back, expecting you to be a big deal when you grow up. You are free to be exactly who you are. And privileged kids don't walk into the work world with that. They've got the attorney dad, the high finance mom, pushing from behind. And you know what it does? It winds up becoming somebody to make happy versus making yourself happy. So you have a huge advantage when you don't come with all that monkey business on your back.
Right. I wanted to ask, we seen a story a couple months ago about somebody trying to scam you out of $400,000.
Oh, yes, we reported this.
Yeah, what happened in that case?
Well, we got an email. My bookkeeper gets an email from a company saying I'm buying 4 or 6 investment properties in Berlin, Germany. Now, I buy investment properties, but not in Berlin. Okay, I don't know Berlin. But it wasn't out of the norm. And they wrote in the name of one of my colleagues at my office who usually authorize our billing. So it was authorized by a fake name, which looked real. And out went the money. It was wired out. Okay, I had a heart attack, but fortunately they wired it to a German bank on its way to China, and we stopped it in Germany and got the money back. Whew, I was sweating that one all night.
Yeah, because I emailed you too. I said that I was your adopted son that you never paid child support for, and I asked for only $100,000, but I never got that wire.
I'm not paying you a nickel. I can tell you're scamming me right here. Come on, you don't even look trustworthy.
I look like you.
No. With that beard and stuff going on, forget it. Not at all.
Well, what happens now with protocol in the office? Because we actually debated this at work, because I was like, well, it feels like, for Barbara Corcoran, $400,000 might be a typical, okay, I let my office handle it. But I remember you guys were like, no, there's no way. That is too high of an amount of money that it doesn't go through certain approval processes.
Certain protocols, yes.
Yes. Well, today we have all the protocol. And you know what the most safe one is of all? Outside the internet. Before any money is wired over a very small amount, the people have to pick up the phone and say, did you send this wire? That's all it is. It's just a phone call as a stop check. And that's what we've initiated at the office.
Now, what markets do you think is a good market for somebody that's trying to get in the real estate game, and say, what markets should they be looking at? Angela and I invested in Detroit and did very well. What markets would you say?
Well, kind of like the old days when people used to make a lot of money in real estate when they followed the train lines. You follow those train lines, you see all those new places in California opening up. Today's version of that is follow the job market. If a large company is opening up in an area and they're employing a lot of well-educated people, prices are going to go through the roof. So, for example, a great example is very close to my home here where I'm investing in heavily, which is Pittsburgh. I almost said Philadelphia. Pittsburgh. You know why?
Pittsburgh, yeah.
Everybody's saying Pittsburgh, and they're a little late. I mean, I've been investing there for almost 3 years, not to show off about it, but I've watched too bad my prices go up, and your memory is your deficit. It makes you hesitate. Like, wait, I could have gotten that cheaper 2 years ago. But it's got so much room for going up because there's so much industry moving in. There's so much government support. The city is supporting real estate development, and there aren't as many restrictions. So you can wheel and deal, renovate, you could increase your rents. And so it's a very secure investment right now. I don't see any really downside. It's got to be something, but maybe I'm turning an eye to it. Yeah.
Now, were you affected bad by, the pandemic and people not being able to pay rent and all those things? How are you holding up with that? And, what happens from there? What happens next outside of that with those properties that you own?
Well, I'm actually a small property owner. I own small buildings, like 8, 12 units. Well, maybe that sounds big, but in real estate terms in New York City, it's not like a high-rise building or something. That's where I'm comfortable. But the moment the eviction proceedings were frozen here in New York, I had roughly 20% of my tenants calling saying they didn't want to pay their rent. This was in April 1. And of those 20%, 10% we allowed not to pay our rent. Because you know what the other 10% were doing? They all had their jobs. They had fancy jobs, and they're well-educated kids, maybe in their 30s, and they were calling and saying, we don't want to pay our rent. And when we asked why, it was because we just don't want to pay it. They still had jobs. They still had income. But 10% of the people were working because we're doing everything we can to help people like that. Now, what's interesting to realize is the landlord's position. I can afford to have 10%, maybe 15% of my tenants not pay their rent. And don't tell them, because 10% is plenty in my book. Once you hit, say, 20%, I've got a problem. I got to pay my real estate taxes, and I've got to pay my mortgage, and I'm not going to be able to afford it. So what happens then? Buildings go into foreclosure. Rents have to be set, but buildings can't be fixed. Roofs can't be without leaks. They can't be fixed. Radiators going. You can't provide heat. And we've had that. I lived it actually in the early 70s when landlords were walking away, abandoning buildings because of rent control. So we kind of have like a short-term version of rent control all over again with all these freezes on. Don't pay your rent. You can't foreclose. So I'm all for it to help out people, but I'm worried it might go too far, particularly in New York City. And then we're going to have really big problems with the landlords, which means we have problems with the financiers, the banks who give the mortgages. Who do they turn to? And the crap just rolls downhill. That's how it rolls.
But you know what? I had that problem too. I had closer to 40% not pay. But you know what it was for?
Wow.
It was because the mayor and the governors, they both got on air and said, hey, we're going to make it where, you know, if you can't afford to pay rent, you don't have to pay rent. You can't get evicted. So when people hear that, automatically they think, oh, I ain't got to pay rent. You can't evict me. And I'm like, no, it don't work like that.
Power to the people, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? They've just changed all those rules that the only way the tenant can't pay rent is he could prove hardship, show that he's collecting unemployment. You should know that because that makes a big difference. That's a need case. And that's how it should be, really. And that's been changed.
Absolutely.
Now, Barbara, how are your businesses that you're invested into doing from Shark Tank in particular? Because it is a hard time for small businesses right now. So I'm sure that's something that you've been paying attention to with the Paycheck Protection Program and all of that.
Yeah, of course. You know, I've invested in about 80 some odd businesses to date, and I'm in touch with not everyone, but just about everyone over the many weeks. I'm always staying in touch. What are you doing? What are you thinking about? Where's your head going? What are the numbers? Not with an eye towards seeing if we're making money or not, but simply laying myself out there. Like, I've lived through 4 bad times and came out alive, so how could I help you? And here's the interesting thing I have found. I have found that probably 10% of my businesses are actually going to make it through the other side. I wish I could say all of them, but here's what the difference is. A lot of them listen, but are waiting for the change. If you sit and wait for the change, you're not coming out the other side. I tell them that, but they don't know what to do. They're afraid to do whatever. They didn't even take advantage of the PPP program, which was open to everybody. But about 10% of my businesses did a couple of things really smart. They looked at where all their money was coming from. They assumed it wasn't going to keep coming, and they reinvented how they could sell their product or service. And so those particular businesses are going to come through fine because they were scared and they maybe didn't make all the right moves, but they moved fast. And interesting enough, going back to that early conversation we had, they were all street smart people who had been through hard times. And so for them, it wasn't a real shocker, you know, to be hit with this stuff. They figure, I survived this, that, or the other thing. I'll survive this as well.
Absolutely. Now let's talk about Shark Tank. Are you tired of Shark Tank, or do you still enjoy it? You still enjoying seeing the crazy people and the crazy ideas?
I'm tired of Robert Herjavec. Yak. He's such a chatty Cathy. Okay, I'm tired of listening. Calm down, Robert, you know. I'm never tired of Shark Tank. Let me tell you, when I got hired for Shark Tank, when I signed that contract and sent it in, I was the happiest girl in New York City. I bought myself a new set of luggage, new outfits, and I was going to Hollywood. And I told everybody I knew, I'm going to Hollywood, you know, with the sign and everything. And then Shark Tank simply made a call and told me I wasn't hired. They replaced me with another woman. But I signed the contract. What do you mean I signed the contract? They said, we didn't sign the contract. Yeah, what a shocker. I didn't want to tell my family and friends, I'm not going to Hollywood anymore. And so I sent them an email. I sent Mark Burnett, the top producer who owned the show then. I didn't know he was a big shot. I just knew he was in charge. And I sent him an email and tell him, you know what? All my best winnings came on the heels of failure. When Donald Trump said I'd never see a penny of the $3 million he owed me, I'd beat him in federal court. When Sister Stella Marie, I went on and on and on, told me I would never learn to read just because I was stupid in school. I know how to read. I just gave it to him. Boom, boom, boom. And then I ended by saying, Great line. Listen to this. I rewrote it 90 times, I want you to know. I said, I consider your rejection a lucky charm, and I'd like to come out and compete for the seat, and I expect to be on that plane. And what do you think he did? He let me compete, and I won.
That's dope. Who was the other person?
I'm not telling you.
I'm just curious.
That would have to be I can't tell you, I've been asked that a few times. I will not ever say who the other person. It's not right. I mean, I would want to be the other person and hear this echo. I won it. I won it. That's all that counts, right? And now, look at the fun I've had on that show, and the opportunity I've had living the early days again and again, like Groundhog Day, with these young entrepreneurs who are so excited. I get to live with them every day, doing that again and again. The best part of building a business, those early days. And so I'm the luckiest kid in town, without a doubt.
How do you think this show has changed from when it first started until now? Because it feels more like you already have to have shown some real numbers in order for you to even get on Shark Tank, to have had some success already. I feel like earlier you didn't really have to be so polished.
Yeah, well, I have to say, from my perspective, those early days, I liked them for two reasons. One, people came in and asked for 10,000, for 20% of their business. Now people come in and ask for 400,000 for 1%. And the only person who jumps at that is Mark Cuban every time, of course, because he's got loads of money, But the difference here today is they do expect sales, but there are exceptions. And the exception that I made just on a whim and just on my gut was buying into the Comfies, which is an oversized sweatshirt, the Comfy, the original Comfy. And there were just two guys standing there, and to my shock, they had a great jingle, like two guys drunk in a bar, two brothers. And when I said, what are your sales? We don't have any. What does it cost you to make that thing? We don't know. Who are you going to sell it to? Huh? All the wrong answers, especially if you think about it, Shark Tank today.
Yes.
Nobody comes with no answers. And I'm like,
absolutely not.
Show, And I said, what the hell? I'll take 30% of your business for, I don't know what I paid them, 50,000, maybe 20,000. I don't know. They've done 86 million in sales.
Oh my gosh.
That's great.
They're my single most successful investment. And the reason I bought into them was I thought, these are great guys. I could have a beer with them and have fun at a bar. It's not a lot of money. Let me throw it and see what happens. Well, look what happened. So Shark Tank always has a turn and a curve that you don't expect. And frankly, that's the lifeblood of the show. You always see something new. You always ask, what? You always argue. I like what they're doing. I don't like what they're doing. I agree with him. I don't like, why didn't I think of that? It's very interactive, really, with the people at home. They don't just watch. And so I think every season for me, it's a new surprise. Like, who's coming through that door today? And just
I feel like you really have to have it together. Like, first of all, I just want to say I've always wanted to be on Shark Tank and do a pitch because I watch it, but it also seems so nerve-wracking. Like, people get so nervous, and it's not an easy thing to do. And then sometimes you watch it and you're like, oh my God, they are bombing right now with answering these questions. And but you can never predict. I think sometimes oh, that went terrible, or I'll think that went great, and it'll be the opposite.
Yes. Yeah. You know what happened last year, which shocked me. 4 guys came out, started a pitch. In the middle of their pitch, they were great. Really a dog and pony show. The middle of the pitch, they got so excited. One guy hits the floor and lays quietly. We're laughing like crazy. That's funny. When he had fainted out of the pressure.
Really?
And then we waited until he got revived. But you know what the law of TV is? No second chances. That's reality TV. We never saw them again. It broke my heart.
Oh,
they can't have a rerun. It's not a trial. It's the real deal there at Shark Tank.
Well, you know what I like Shark Tank the most, and I love Shark Tank. I love watching it, and I love trying to, make a bid myself before you guys make a bid or say how much I would offer or give. But the thing that I like about it the most is my kids watch Shark Tank. My kids are into it. I have an 18-year-old, a 16-year-old. They watch it and they are into it. They know what a company is worth, and they're learning this way before I did. Like, I'm from Queens. I didn't know anything about investing. So they're learning that, and they're calling me, Dad, I think this company is worth this much because of this, that, and the other. And I love that.
Yeah, of course, because you know why? It's a real life education. It's not, it's something they can really use. But do you want me to give you the bad side of that so that you're ready for it? They're going to come to you and say, hey, Dad, how about you make an investment in this great idea we have? And my valuation is, give me the cash. And you're not going to like it at all.
Well, you know, they already started it. My son already started a business where he sold, where he was selling used clothes, which he did well. Then he started another business where he was selling video game coins and needed money to promote himself. He already started. See, those businesses I'm helped because it's small money. You know, I'm just waiting to the day where, you know, like Donald Trump's son and be like, hey, Dad, can I have $1 million loan? I'm not there yet, but the small things, I can definitely give him $500 here and $100 here. I can do that much.
Yeah, you sound like a good dad to me.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, and you know, just piggybacking off of what you said earlier, even for some of the contestants on Shark Tank who don't get the investment, that should actually encourage them to push even harder, because there have been people who didn't get those investments that still have gone on to have successful companies. So I know sometimes when you get rejected, that can actually be a battery in your back.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you know, if you've got the stuffing for an entrepreneur, it does drive you on, or it puts you down. Depends upon how you're made. But you know what else happens? Interestingly, if they don't get an investment, they always get sales as a result of Shark Tank money. So just being on Shark Tank gives you free national advertising. It's what you do with it. Once it goes high and peaks and then comes tumbling down, what you do then really divides the men from the boys and the girls from the women, without a doubt.
Now, I had one last question. I wanted to know about when it comes to your personal life, right? Because you're always working. We're seeing you doing real estate. We see you doing this. We see it's so much that you're doing. How do you find time for personal life?
You know, surprisingly, I give myself a lot of leeway. I've always put my vacations, even though I don't know where I can go this year, but they're in my book. I always vacation my entire life, even when I worked like 35-hour days, it felt like 7 days a week. I vacationed every 6th week. Even if I could only afford to take a train to Jones Beach, I vacationed. And looking forward to those vacations mentally helped me tremendously. And then when I could fill in those vacation blanks with an actual trip somewhere, that was a big deal. And I've done that my whole life. And in the meantime, between the vacations, what I'm very good at doing is knowing what makes me relax. And it's not reading a book, sadly, so I'm probably illiterate for the most part. But I love to weed a garden. I pull out those weeds, all my troubles are gone, just like that. If I exercise, all the stress I felt is gone. And so I know myself. You know, the advantage of getting older is you get to know yourself, what floats your boat. And I'm pretty steady about that. And I have great friends and great family, and I know they're the most important thing, much more important than work. And I really keep that front and forward. You know, if you didn't have your friends and your family, how empty life would be, right? So yeah, I know what's important, keeping a firm handle on what's important. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for being on the Breakfast Club for the first time. We really appreciate that.
My pleasure. Really nice hanging out with you guys. You're lovely to speak with, really.
All right. Well, thank you so much. It's Barbara Corcoran. It's the Breakfast Club. Good morning. Thank you so much.